I would tell any, especially young people out there, if you're like struggling to get off the sideline and get out there and do something, you just got to do it. Nobody knows how to do it when they first start something. You just got to get out there and you got to get the inertia moving in your favor.
What's up, everybody? I am Mitchell England, and this is the 0 to 100 podcast. My other co-hosts are out in Fiji hanging out on the beach. So while I'm working, they are playing. No, much deserved. I'll be running solo here with our guests today. As always, as you guys know, 0 to 100 podcast is about buying big real estate, cash flow real estate specifically, so you can get your life back. And today, our guest definitely embodies that. Retired, or maybe not retired, financially free at 35, right when he got married. Today, he's a father of 4, a successful real estate investor and developer. And so as we dive in, we're going to get to know his story more. We'll start in the beginning, why he got into real estate, but then back into like all the awesome things he's doing today and really the life that real estate's given him today. So welcome, Kurt. How do I say your last name, Kurt?
Buchert, like book Kurt.
So yeah, man, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you joining me today. Where are you calling in from?
So I live up in the Florida Panhandle, so northwest Florida. It's about 15 miles east of Destin. So right, it's a small beach community between Destin and Panama City, Florida.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was in a past life. I was in the Navy in Pensacola, so I lived around Perdido Key down there. Even further, I guess that'd be west from you. But yeah, I love that area of the world. You're spoiled with amazing weather versus I've got this long winter of gray in Washington State. So I'm definitely jealous. So, well, yeah, man, let's dive in. I mean, I know you're a successful developer, real estate investor today, but before that, what were you doing? What was your childhood like? Like, how'd you get started?
Yeah, so I grew up in New Orleans, 48 years old now. So I grew up in New Orleans in the 80s and 90s. And I went to Catholic school my whole life because public schools in New Orleans are pretty terrible in general. So you got to pretty much go to private school. Then I went to LSU. I studied finance at LSU. Got out of LSU December 1999. At LSU, I was really interested in business stuff, finance. That was back when like day trading tech stocks was big. So I used to do a lot of that in the late 90s. I've never actually looked at what I owned Amazon stock at because it was so low that I don't want to look at it because you're going to have regret. I probably would be like worth, $100 million or something by now.
Oh my gosh.
If I would have held on to it. But I learned some good lessons doing that because I experienced the stock market crash. I was buying tech stocks on margin. I made a lot of money and I got cocky and thought I was invincible, but luckily I didn't have that much money. So the money I lost, it wasn't like an insane amount of money to lose, but it taught me a couple lessons. So then I actually became a financial advisor when I graduated college. I became a CFP, a certified financial planner. I was in the financial services industry for 7 years. And when Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans, my company moved me to Dallas for a year. And I kind of had guilt about leaving New Orleans when it was at its lowest point and really messed up. And then as a businessman, I was like, man, they're going to, the government's going to put a lot of money into the city, rebuilding. Half the city needs their house rebuilt. So I was like, I need to come up with a business. And I really didn't want to be a general contractor. Obviously, there's a lot of money in that, but I had dealt with personal general contractors myself. And I was like, I don't want to be in the other side of this transaction. It just seems awful to be a general contractor. So I actually started a spray foam insulation business because I had that service performed at a couple of my rental properties. And I thought it was, best thing since sliced bread. So I started that business after Katrina and we did awesome. We insulated like 3,000 homes over the course of the next, 7 years I was in it. And luckily, I was never a huge spender. So instead of most blue collar guys that if they have high income, they're going to like buy all the big $100,000 trucks, they're buying the boats, they're doing all the crazy stuff. I was putting all my money into real estate. So I was buying really messed up houses in New Orleans, renovating them. Sometimes I'd sell. Most of the times I just kept them as long-term rentals. So I put most of my money into real estate. And yeah, I became financially free at age 35.
So Kurt, I want to go back a little bit because like you go get your education, you're day trading, you're playing, I'm kind of taking notes here, following you. Financial advisor, financial planner. you were probably making good money as a financial planner, I'm guessing. So did that feel entrepreneurial, or were you sort of like you felt very much like an employee at that point? And then I guess the second question is, why and how do you go from financial planner to spray and insulation? You glossed over that quick, but I'm like, how do you, because I love the jump. You really went from you really dove into blue collar by choice. Maybe you saw an opportunity there. Anyway, I want to dive into that moment in time. What are you thinking at that point?
Yeah, so the transition area was, I bought my first property in 2003 when I was a financial advisor. It was a duplex. I lived in half of it. I rented out the other half. I didn't know anything about construction. I didn't know anything about houses. What's ironic is my dad actually knew a ton about that stuff. My grandfather did as well. My dad and my grandpa built my dad's house when I was little. Like, they literally, I think they did everything themselves. Like, built an entire house. So they were actually really knowledgeable and really handy. But I think for that, my dad's generation, the boomers, they didn't want their kids to be in blue collar life at all. So he never really taught me how to do that stuff. And I'm not blaming him or anything, but they just didn't want us to be in that. I think they wanted us to get educated. They wanted us to be in the white collar world, which is fine, but I just didn't know anything about construction or renovations. I couldn't do anything. So anyway, so I bought my first property literally within the first month. The roof was leaking like crazy. I had to get a new roof. Didn't know anything about it. Had to spend in the $5,000 or $6,000 to get a new roof back then. But that taught me gradually as I owned that. It was a really old house. Gradually as I owned that house, I learned some things. I bought another couple properties within a year or two down the street. So I kind of was learning how the process of renovating houses and learned a little bit about construction that way. So when I started this spray foam thing, I wasn't completely green to construction, but relatively green. But I also knew that I didn't want to do the blue collar part myself. I wanted to be the business guy, and I wanted our crew to do all the installation of the product, which is what happened. Even 7 years into that business, if you say, Kurt, you need to go insulate this house today, I literally did not know how to turn the machine on. So we did 3,000 houses. On the 3,000, if I had to do the 3,001 first house, I couldn't turn the machine on. I wouldn't be able to do it. But I was purposefully did that because I didn't want to go be bogged down doing the actual installation of the product myself. I wanted to be the business guy, do the estimates and do all the business stuff. So it actually worked out really well. But I got totally burnt out of that business. So after 7 years, I was totally done with it. And I was financially free at that point because I had all my rental properties. So I just thought I sold that business for a cheap price. I could have probably got a lot more a couple of years before, but I didn't really know anything about selling businesses. So I sold it for a really cheap price. And then I got married, and then my wife and I took a year off and traveled around the world, and, I stopped working.
It's amazing because I had the same experience. It's our parents, with all good intentions, were look, go get a college degree, go become something, an accountant or a mid-level manager or whatever that is. But what I think happened, there's probably data to support this, is we all went to college and no one went into the trades. And so now it's there's this huge need. We're working with this roofing company because we've talked about buying companies, and it's I've dove into it, and a good successful roofer is a multimillionaire. Could be within 3 to 5 years. Could be more if they really build the system correctly. I'm just blown away. The same results in the corporate world could take several years, maybe 20 years in some cases. And so anyway, I think that's really interesting.
And I caveat that is the ones that are good with money are the ones that could be millionaires very quickly. Most of them are terrible with money. So if they're actually good with money, they can retire very quickly. Because the other day, last week, I had a plumber go out. I use this plumbing company, and they have this one stupid rule. I used to use this Brazilian guy, but he went crazy on me. Side story. But I used this new company, and they were going out to put a new kitchen faucet at a property of mine. And for some reason, their rule of their company is they can't just go to Home Depot or Lowe's to buy a kitchen faucet. They have to go to the plumbing supplier to buy this kitchen faucet. So the guy calls me. He's like, hey, man, this is just our rule. So if I have to do it, by the time I buy the faucet and come back and install it, it's going to be $750 to install a kitchen faucet. I was like, that's insane. He's like, well, you can just buy it on Home Depot and then I'll come and install it for you for whatever, 175 or whatever it was. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do that. I'm like, but imagine all the people that pay that $750 to put a kitchen faucet on.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think that also there's such a demand that they just name the price. And I think people do pay it. I had my home, forced air, the heat pump went out. And I'm like, look, it's actually a good system. It's a little older, but I think it's a good system. I think it could be repaired. Well, my first quote comes in at like $18K because I go, then you need to replace the whole thing. The second one, I know, right? And I'm going, gosh, like I just don't know if that's right. So the second one comes in at $10,000. They're going to do a partial replacement at $10,000. The third guy goes, dude, your system's great. I can have it fixed in like 45 minutes for $500. Fixes it. It runs great. I'm like, man, if I just like didn't take the time. So there's a little bit of like, I don't know what you want to call it, price gouging. I mean, there's such a demand that I think they can throw out those bids and someone's going to bite. And when they do bite, they just make a ton of money.
Yeah, I think it also has to do with how busy they are. And I can't blame them. When I had my insulation business, if we were completely slammed and if the job was like a little bit more complicated or something, I would quote it higher than normal just because supply and demand.
It's supply and demand. It's the way it works. But as a consumer, you got to realize that's the way it works. And I think shop around. But you talked about the duplex. You buy this duplex, you rent out one side. Why did you get into real estate at all? Why did you buy that duplex? Did you always want to be in real estate, or what was your thought in the beginning?
So when I was in college, I hated going to class. I hated college. It's kind of a waste for me. But the one thing I did well in college is we had a Barnes and Nobles open near our campus at LSU when I was in college. And back then, it was the mid-90s. Like the Barnes and Nobles were like, it was pretty much a brand new company. And like a new Barnes and Nobles, I don't know if you remember this, was like a huge deal. And it was just like a revolutionary thing. It was like you could go in there, you could buy a coffee, and you could sit there and read all their books all day long. So that's what I would do. I was very interested in things, nothing that the university was teaching, but I would go into Barnes and Nobles, I would buy a Frappuccino, and I would sit there and I would read all the money magazines. I would read a lot of the self-help financial books, and I got onto some real estate books, and they were teaching me that I could invest money and buy real estate and make money by not doing anything. And back then, as a college kid, looking at 50 years of work ahead of me, that's what I wanted. I wanted to make money by not doing anything. Now, that's a false promise. Real estate investing, you're definitely not going to not do anything. But back then, I thought you could just buy a house and just rent it out forever and not do it. So I thought that was amazing. So I had always had that real estate bone in me. So I really wanted to buy real estate. And when I bought my first duplex, the other side of the duplex paid my mortgage for me. And I was like, this is awesome. I go, all my other friends are renting places. They're spending a ton of money on rent. And I have, I had to pay insurance and taxes, but the whole mortgage was paid for me. I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to do this again. So I just kept doing it slowly but surely and buying duplexes and just kind of snowballed.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, first of all, I love what you said. Like, you don't just buy and forget it and make money forever, right? There's an active component. A lot of people call it passive income. I think it's passive-ish, depending on your systems and processes and the way that you manage. You can get pretty passive with real estate, but it takes a while to get there. Like, you've got to be purposeful about it. Because I thought the same thing as a kid. I thought, oh my gosh, if I just buy a bunch of real estate, like I'll just never have to lift a finger again. I don't think that's the case. I think, but there's somewhere in the middle. It's like really leveraged work. Like when you do work, it's like your dollar per hour is like ridiculous. Because you're like, maybe it's a couple hours on a rental per month, but that rental makes you several thousand. And you've got a lot of equity in it too. But anyway, I think that's a good point. The other point is it's amazing when you get that first house. When I got my first house and someone paid for it, like such a huge light bulb. And it also was amazing because I could take that money and I could, like, instead of renting a house or paying my own mortgage, I could take that money and invest it. And I think that a lot of investors get started with the house hack or that concept of the house hack, where they can take those funds and start a snowball versus everybody else. Say you start in your early 20s, everybody else is working the job and going out and paying their rent or their mortgage, and they don't have that same effect. And it's a small difference early, but over time, it turns into a massive snowball, or at least can for folks. So the house hack, I feel like, is like the most well-known, effective way to start. So you buy your duplex, kind of just focusing on your real estate side now. Did you buy any more properties inside of being a financial planner, or the most of your acquisitions come as you were doing insulation?
I think I only had like 3 duplexes when Hurricane Katrina hit before I started the insulation company. So I had some real estate stuff. So I was pretty experienced, a little somewhat experienced in it. But then when we started buying stuff after Katrina, that's when I tested everything. We did flips, we did renovations, buy and hold duplex. We did what back then was called wholetailing. We'd buy some properties from wholesalers back when you could get really good deals with wholesalers. And then we would sell them on the MLS, probably maybe clean them out a little bit and then sell on the MLS. There was one property I remember. The market got so bad at one point. I think this was 2009 or something like that. There was a property for sale for $10,000. And my buddy and I, who we were buying some properties together, we had this thing in our brain. We wanted to buy a property for $1,000. So we offered $1,000 and they countered at $2,500. And this was a messed up flooded house from Katrina, but there was a house on a lot. The area wasn't great, but it wasn't like the worst area. So they countered at $2,500 and we said no. That's how much opportunity there was back then in that year that we said no. I mean, granted, we were going to have to put a bunch of money into the property, so that played into it. But yeah, we said no to a $2,500 property.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. I remember early on going out to Detroit, Michigan. I think it was in Detroit or Toledo. Well, there was Detroit and then there was Toledo, Ohio. And I remember one of my buddies was buying homes on a credit card. And I did make a couple offers and they were like 20, 30K. And I didn't understand real estate. And I made a couple offers, didn't get anything because I was off. Like the seller wanted like 5K more or whatever. But these things were renting for like $1,000 and now they're worth twice that or more or whatever. But it's funny how like usually when you look back on when you're pretty close to negotiation and you didn't buy it, it was a mistake, usually, at least for me. And so you have your installation company, you're making a lot of cash. I think it sounded like you did pretty well there. And then was that, as you scaled up your portfolio, what were you buying? Was it still duplexes or was it single family or did you move into multifamily at that time? What was your asset class?
Yeah, the only really multifamily we bought a 16-unit complex, and that was the biggest thing I ever bought. We really just kind of stayed in our wheelhouse because we knew the duplexes. Now, we were buying a lot in the same neighborhood. So like there's one street right now, I still own I think I own 10 duplexes on one street. So they were kind of like having an apartment complex because we owned a bunch on one different area. But the largest property we bought was a 16-unit place. It was actually 2 8-plexes next to each other. And we only owned it for 3 years. And then we sold it because the market had kind of gone up a little bit. And it was the management of that was a little bit of a hassle. And I was handling the management of a lot. Like we had coin operated washer dryers. They got broken into. Some of the tenants, there's a decent amount of turnover. There's one guy that would fry every single meal. He fried food. I'd never seen anything like this. I walked into his place one day and there was like a coating of like oil on all the walls and the ceiling. I don't even know if he ever used the vent even. And I was like, man, I was just wondering like what his lungs looked like.
How are you still alive?
It's gross. Maybe never want to fry anything ever again.
Yeah, I've walked into some homes. I remember this is like so gross, by the way, but I bought this house off the auction steps, Tacoma, Washington. And long story, but anyway, finally got to where I could get into the house because there was a guy in there living there. He was living in the living room. And I'll never forget the day, like my wife's looking at me like, because the outside looked terrible. And I'm like, well, I'm sure the inside's not that bad. I'm always like, pretty positive about things. And so I go in there and I immediately run out the door. She's just standing in the yard with my kiddo, run out the door and just throw up all over the yard.
Oh, gosh.
And she's like, oh, is it like, what's going on? I'm like, no, I like wipe my mouth. I'm like, it's not that bad. It's really not that bad. We got this. But so the guy had been living in the living room and he's dipping like tobacco and he was spitting into a bucket, but the bucket was full and it would just overflow. And I was like, dude, this is just so anyway, it's the things you see when you buy homes in distress is pretty interesting. But
yeah, No, it's crazy. I got a bunch of crazy stories like that. There's some insane stuff you see, especially New Orleans. I mean, a city like New Orleans, there's so many crazy things that I saw.
So, Kurt, I want to talk about mindset for a second because I'm obsessed with mindset. I feel like that you could have all the tactics, all the education, the network, all the things, but if you lack the right mindset, it's hard to get started. It's hard to get somewhere. And it's one of those topics that's sort of subjective. It's hard to objectify mindset. But first of all, I noticed talking to you, everything sounds kind of easy. First, like, in other words, I feel like you have this perspective where it's like, yeah, then I did that. And then like, I'm going to jump in and do that. And like, you have this very can do, like, attitude, figure it out, perspective, which I really respect. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that. But like, do you have people in your life, do you feel like downloaded the right mindset? Maybe talk about the way you think, the way you approach things. Because I also meet people where everything's hard, man. Everything's like you can't do it. You can't figure it. I've never gotten the education. Nobody's ever taught me. I don't have a mentor. There's just like all these excuses versus talking to you. You're like, man, I think you could do anything. Maybe just talk about mindset and the way that's played a part in your life.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, I'm really big on inertia. If you have the inertia of always doing something, you're going to always do something. If you have the inertia of sitting around watching TV, you're going to sit around and watch TV. And I would tell any, especially young people out there, if you're like struggling to get off the sidelines and get out there and do something, you just got to do it. Nobody knows how to do it when they first start something. You just got to get out there and you got to get the inertia moving in your favor. So, if you're thinking about investing in your first property or something like that, I would literally just say, I don't care if I'm lose money on this deal. I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to go out and do it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm not going to belabor every single issue or problem that comes up and just go out there and do it. Because if you don't do that, you're just going to sit around forever and just analyze everything. I mean, my dad's an engineer, brother's an engineer, and I just know, especially people like that, they can just sit there and analyze everything. And you just can't be like that. You just got to go out there and get things done. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's just how you learn, man. Like my wife and her sister, 2 years ago, they decided to open a Pilates business over here in Florida, and I really encouraged it. I actually told them they should because they had experience in that business. I was like, this area needs it. I go, y'all would kill it. And neither of them had ever started a business. Neither of them had any experience in entrepreneurial world. And they just did it. Like my wife's a doer, and they just did it. They figured it out. They're doing awesome. They're killing it. They're about to open their third Pilates studio in 2.5 years, and they just figured it out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's a multitude of perspectives, but if you boil it down, simply speaking, some people look at the world like everybody's professional, so everybody knows what they're doing, and you don't. So it's like, oh, everybody knows what they're doing. That person built a house, or that person does this or does whatever, and I don't have that education. I don't have that.
Nobody knows anything. Everybody's full of shit. So you're fine.
I love that because that's how I look at it. It's like, no. Everybody's winging it, man. And I can wing it too. And I can figure that out. I remember when I was like, I want to say 15 or 16, this was a pivotal moment in my life. I'm in my house. We had like a 4,000 square foot home growing up, big house, beautiful home. And my dad had built it. He worked on the railroad. He'd come home and he'd build this house. He built, kind of like you said, your dad and your grandpa. Dad did everything. We wired the house with him. We crawled through the rafters, like everything. So I remember I was 16 and it finally hit me. I'm like, Dad, how did you build this house? I don't even understand. And I'm like, did you build before this? He said, Mitch, I built like a dog house when I was like a kid. And I'm like, and then you did this. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, how did you do it? And he goes, well, I went down to Ace Hardware and I bought a book, and the title it said How to Build a House. And I'm like, and then what? And he's like, and then I just started building a house. And then he's like, and then I would just basically go into Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever when I was confused. And he's like, what I found out is, and I don't know if this is the same way. He goes, what I found out is a lot of those old guys that like show you to the right aisle. Well, they used to be like electricians or like plumbers. So he's like, hey, let me pick your brain. So he had all these advisors all over town. He had a book on how to build a house, and he built a gorgeous home. So anyway, it just taught me like, wait, like you want to do something, the information's there, the people are there. You just got to jump in, like you said, and just go do it, make mistakes, figure it out as you go.
Yeah, our society has gotten into such specialization and division of labor. In many ways, it's a good thing. But it's so bad now that we don't have any generalists anymore. It's hard to find people that can do all this stuff anymore because everybody's so specialized that it's just like, when you build a house, you've built a house before. Sitting in my house we just built last year. There's 200 people that came in and did work at this house. It's like, gosh, can't we just have some people that jack of all trades? Like my house that I built in New Orleans for myself, we built this unbelievable, awesome house. And my main guy is Brazilian guy. I mean, he did 70% of it himself because he just knew how to do almost everything. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's a disappearing thing, right? Our parents' generation, there's a lot of guys and gals that really had knowledge of everything. And today, I think it is really specialized. So diving in a little bit, I know you said you're 48 today. We talked about in the beginning, you were semi-retired, retired, financially free, however we want to call that at 35. So pretty young. What does your life look like today? I know you're married, you have 4 kiddos. I'm assuming you still do work or have projects and that's a part of your life, but maybe just talk about what you own today and what your life looks like today.
Yeah. So I do work. I choose when I work. It's usually just a few hours a day. I manage all my properties in New Orleans. I have a few Airbnbs. I manage those. And then I look over other investments. And occasionally I'll help with my wife's business. But yeah, my average day, I usually play pickleball for 2 hours a day and then do something else random. I'll either go to the beach or go biking, go walking, go lift some weights for a little while. And then I usually come home and do some work for a few hours. And then my kids come home and hang out with them for a while. And then we usually have something to do with the kids, bring them somewhere or whatnot. I like to cook. I usually cook dinner most days. And yeah, then the day's a wrap. I love time freedom. So I feel like I have time freedom. Every day is different for me, which I love. Some people love routines, but I try to make most of my days a little bit different just to kind of keep it spicy. And I have 4 kids under 10, so I like to see them. I like to spend time with them a lot because I know that time is limited. And my older kids, sometimes they don't want to spend time with me. And it's probably going to get worse when they're teenagers. I'm trying to live it up in those years when they actually want to spend some time with me.
Yeah, well, I love that you said pickleball, first of all. I love pickleball. I've been able to play a lot with my dad got me into pickleball. And so, yeah, we go down to Palm Springs and play. And I was just actually up in Moses Lake at we were at like this horse event. My dad and I peeled off and played a couple hours. So what a great sport, man. I'm average, man. I'm average. I've gotten good. There's moments where I've gotten good where I'm like, okay, I'm like playing with 4-0s or 4-5s or whatever and holding my own. Right now, though, it's been a little while since I haven't been consistent. So I'm probably like maybe a 3-5. I'm average. So what about you? You play a lot, obviously. So you got to be pretty good.
I play a lot. I'm technically like a 4-3, but I feel like I'm a 4-5. I feel like some of the tournaments that I've won, they haven't put my scores into the program. And then some of the ones I haven't played as well, my point totals are in there. But yeah, I love it. I play a lot. My goal is actually to become a senior pro, which is in 2 years, I'll be 50. So I really would like to make one of the senior pro teams. That's just my goal. I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm kind of working towards that.
I mean, I sing its praises. When I first played it, I just didn't realize, first of all, the exercise, the culture of pickleball is so cool. You can go anywhere in the country and go show up to a court and people are like, oh yeah, come and play, grab a ball. I've been super impressed with it. Started to get my kiddos into it as well. But yeah, what a great sport. And then every time I do play it, I'm like, I should do this for the rest of my life. I just want to play pickleball. It's like, so it's an addicting sport. So I love the snapshot of your life. Especially with folks who have kids, it's so important to be there for your kids. I think that's such an amazing thing that you're able to do as a parent, to have that attention and not be working 60 hours a week and pulled away from them. I mean, they are our next generation. So that focus is really awesome. So I love that you have the time freedom. And that's what this podcast, that's what our book's about. It's not just for the money, right? It's not just for a nice car in the driveway or a beautiful home, those are great. But like getting time back to be with people you love, life's short. And so I think that's a really important piece. I would rather live in a crappy little home and drive a beat up car and have a lot of time and enough resources to be happy than to live in a mansion and not have any time at all. So I think that's really awesome. Like you really align with the 0 to 100 sort of like culture. So I'm curious, where are you going from here? I mean, are you acquiring more properties? Are you like, no, steady as she goes? We've got what we need. What does it look like for acquisitions for you?
So right now, I mean, really any excess money I'm investing in my wife's business because it's just kicking butt. And the fact that I don't feel like there's many properties that are priced good enough for me to really be aggressive in the markets I want to be in. There has been some softening in the markets that I'm in, but it's still like I want to buy stuff for 60 cents on the dollar. And I just don't see great deals out there. There's some decent deals out there, but I want great deals. If I'm going to do the work and deal with all of it, at this point, I want great deals. And I'm a big believer in cycles. And I think the last couple of years it's just been a little bit harder to buy stuff. So I am not in acquisition mode right now. And I still look at stuff. If I saw something that I really liked, I would act on it very quickly. But I don't see that many incredible deals out there right now, personally. And I think that's another lesson to learn is like, hey, there's seasons when you should go out there and just be crazy aggressive. And there's seasons when you should be a little bit more patient. And we're learning that I'm in some real estate syndications, and some of those deals are blowing up, man, because I feel like a lot of these guys got too aggressive with buying stuff at the height of the market. And I'm an LP in some of these deals, and some of them are going bad. It's not fun.
Yeah, the syndication thing, we syndicate, we buy properties on our own. We also do some JV, and then we do some syndications. The syndication model, I think it's interesting because I think it can be a good model. It can also be a bad model. You see these guys build these teams that they need to support, and then they end up supporting that off of acquisition fees. But the only way you get acquisition fees is if you go close properties. So the alignment on like, you got to be really careful on how does the syndication group align? Are they really aligned with investors? And there's some big players that I sometimes question. I go, well, how good was the deal? I get it. You took $1 million acquisition fee. That's cool. But like, does this deal like work? What if interest rates go up 1% or 2%? Are you now in a negative leverage situation where you're feeding the property? Like, so I think during a run up, everything's kind of good. Everyone's smart. And then when it starts, we see high inflation, interest rates go up, loans reset, and now it's sort of like the tide's gone out. Unfortunately, I have probably 5 friends that are losing homes, like their personal home type thing, because they played that game and it was really based more on speculation than it was on fundamentals. And so anyway, I think it's a season. I think there's a lot of blood in the streets today right now, unfortunately. And I think that prices will equalize and we'll see probably some better deals over time.
Yeah, when you get into these situations, especially what's going on in commercial real estate right now in apartment buildings, and you learn quickly how important cash is, how important your debt is, the terms of your debt. Because before I invested in any syndications, I thought like, hey, I'm buying real estate. I'm buying a part of this apartment complex. I can't lose money. These people need a place to live and they're going to pay their rent. But I never thought I could like lose all my money. But there's a couple of deals I'm probably going to lose all my money because the debt is coming due and they have to refinance and interest rates are so much higher that these banks are like, hey, dude, you got to put up more capital or we're going to take this property. So they're doing capital calls. People don't want to put up more money because who wants to put up more money into an investment they think is losing money? So can't put up the capital call and the property goes to foreclosure. It's nasty.
Well, depending on, like you said, depending on where the LPs sit, some people might be willing to inject, other ones won't. So now we've got some infighting. It can turn nasty really quickly. But yeah, I talk about this a lot with folks we work with, like our Elite Mastermind. We have some folks in there who are just sort of capital providers, right? And I'm like, look, just because you're a capital provider doesn't mean you don't need to understand the fundamentals of real estate, because you're still putting your capital into that just because you're an LP. But I say that we've all done it, right? You go, hey, I trust this guy or this group or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're going, oh man, I probably should have looked at that a little closer. I know Travis could talk in nauseam about some of his experiences with, I won't tell his stories for him, but he's gotten into some LPs that are pretty questionable and challenging.
It's one of the downside for people like you and I and people like us that are entrepreneurs. We're usually pretty positive people. We usually are pretty good people. We assume everybody else is a good, honorable person. And sometimes we're too positive. So sometimes you need someone around you that's going to give you a reality check. And it's good to maybe talk to some of those guys that have maybe 60 years old, that have seen a few cycles. They've seen different markets, and they can give you a reality check that it's not always sunshine and butterflies. There's going to be some nasty markets out there, and bad stuff's going to happen. And for you to really watch your levels of cash and be really picky about the deals you invest in. I mean, like right now, for like syndications and stuff, I am at the situation where I'm like, my answer is always absolutely no, unless you can totally prove this is going to be an incredible deal and a low risk deal. Like, I don't want to invest in the deals that the syndicator's saying, yeah, we're going to have a 30% IRR. And like that's automatically scares me now. Like, that used to like entice me, like, oh, I'm going to make 30% of my money. But now I'm like, oh yeah, something's up with this.
Our elite group and Travis, they tease me because I believe that everything's guilty until proven innocent. I always say that. So by the time a deal comes over the desk, whatever, I'm like, oh, this is probably shit. I just start with that. And then I'm like, all right, are there good fundamentals? Can we get it below replacement cost? What is my DSCR? Like, it has to like prove itself across several criteria to then say, okay, like this is worth actually diving into. And I hate having to be like that, but I think that it's a safer approach, a more conservative approach, because things can change. And a lot of people are like, they love tossing around the statement, like real estate's a good investment. And I remember this conversation between this investor and Robert Kiyosaki. And this investor said, is real estate a good investment? That he just asked him this question. And Robert Kiyosaki said, I don't know. Are you a good investor? And I was like, oh man, that was so powerful, because like real estate can destroy you if you don't know what you're doing and you're not like diligent. So real estate, yeah, over time, like if you look at the macro charts, it's gone up and to the right, but it goes up and to the right with several waves in between. And those waves can be deep troughs, deep valleys.
I mean, it's just like, I think the stock market, there's some crazy percentage. I think it's 95% of stocks in the history of the U.S. stock market have eventually gone to zero. You know, if you invested in the general S&P 500 or the Dow over time, you've made a lot of money. But almost all of those stocks, if you bought all those individual stocks, most of them actually have gone to zero at some point. So it's just like the stock. You can't just say, oh, the stock market's great or the stock market's bad. It just depends how you do it. Are you a good investor or not? It's same with real estate. You can get murdered in it or you can do well. That's why I like it. It's fun. There's so many different dynamics. There's so many different strategies. That's what's so fun about it.
It's a dangerous game, but you can mitigate the dangers, the downside, through education, through a strong network, through having a really strict criteria, through learning the game. And those who learn the game and play well get rewarded pretty handsomely. So I don't know if you listen to our podcast, but we love asking this question in the end, because I think some listeners are exactly in this situation. So it's kind of a hypothetical, Kurt. The idea is that you've lost everything. Knock on wood. You've lost everything. You've lost your network. You still got your family. You still got, right? So definitely haven't lost all of it or everything, but you've lost your money. You've lost your network, and you're sitting on a buddy's couch, right? And you're going like, what do I do now? I'm curious, what are your first steps to go build a big life, to go invest in real estate? How do you get back on your feet?
So I know everything I know now.
All the experience is yours, man.
Okay. So tomorrow I just lose every dollar I have.
All the dollars you have and your network. We take the network away too, because that one's pretty powerful.
And my network. Okay. So I probably have to get a job. Probably have to get a job, which would suck. But I have to get a job, and then I would just live super lean, because I don't mind doing that. I would live super lean, save money. I would probably have two funds. I'd probably put one bucket and buy into some type of network or mastermind that has successful people in it. So I could have a network immediately just from paying, because it would just take 20 years to build that network organically. And my other bucket would be my capital bucket for investing. And then I would probably go out and try to buy a property or try to do some wholesaling or something, or just get really aggressive and go out there and maybe do some owner financed or something, or sweat equity, and try to work my way into a deal and go from there. Those would be the two things I would do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel the same way. And I think it's like a network is so important. It's interesting you talk about paying for a network. Like a network's more important than the dollars traded for that network. I mean, it's the most, I feel like a network is like beyond your family. As far as the business world, I feel like is one of the most important things. With it, you have it's insurance, it's security, it's your brotherhood, your sisterhood. And then the other thing is getting into investments, getting into assets as fast as you can. So I love that answer, man. I wasn't quite sure if you're going to say you're going to go launch another insulation company, because I know you know how to make fast cash on that. Maybe you're done with that though.
Nah, dude, I got so burnt out. I don't even think I'd do that if I was desperate. I've had people approach me like, hey, let's start one again. I'm like, nah, dude. It's just like, breaking up with a girl 20 years ago that like, you're just done. When you're done, you're done. Like, you're never getting back together with her.
Not a chance. She was kind of cute. There were some benefits, but absolutely not.
Yeah, no, I'm done. Mentally done. Checked out.
That's funny. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate the hour. Your time's valuable, but this was so fun to dive in and to get to know you more, get to know your story. And I'm sure our listeners are going to love this podcast. So thank you, Kurt.
Yeah, it was fun, Mitchell. Appreciate it, man.